There's a moment that happens before words, before a handshake, before you're given a chance to explain yourself. It's a scan. Fast, quiet, instinctive. Someone looks at you and decides what you're worth. You feel it when you enter a room and the air shifts just slightly. When eyes touch you, then slide away. When attention doesn't even bother to land. That moment isn't personal, it's biological. And it happens faster than thought. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most people never notice it happening, but they live with the consequences every day. You can be intelligent. You can be kind. You can be capable. None of that matters in the first second. The body judges before the mind gets a vote. And if your presence signals weakness, the world responds the same way predators do when they sense it. Not with cruelty, with efficiency. You've seen it. Someone less competent walks into a room and immediately commands space. People listen. Doors open. Meanwhile, someone sharper, more disciplined, more honest, stands to the side waiting to be acknowledged. Not because they lack value, but because they look like they do. That's the part no one likes to say out loud. We like to believe life is fair, that talent rises, that effort is noticed. But the truth is colder. The world reads signals, not intentions, and most people are unconsciously trained to reward strength and distance themselves from anything that smells like need. This isn't about money, not really. Poverty in human terms is not an empty wallet. It's a visible reduction of power, a shrinking, a hesitation in the body, a posture that says, "I'm hoping you approve of me." That signal travels fast. And once it's sent, people treat you accordingly. They interrupt you more. They negotiate harder. They forget your name. Not because they're evil, because they're human. Here's the uncomfortable truth most never confront. When you look diminished, you invite extraction. People take more. They give less. They don't even realize they're doing it. And once that pattern starts, it feeds on itself. You begin to compensate, to explain, to overperform, to seek approval. Each move quietly confirms the original signal. This person is not centered. This person is not sovereign. That's the trap. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology gave it nicer words. He saw that power is often granted before it's possessed. That appearance comes first, and reality rearranges itself afterward. Not because the world is cruel, but because it's efficient. So the question isn't how to become powerful first. The real question is, what are you signaling right now without realizing it? Every time you step outside, you broadcast something, a posture, a tempo, a tolerance for being overlooked. Most people never audit that signal. They assume the world is reacting to who they are when it's reacting to what they project. And that's where the shift begins. Not with money, not with status, not with confident speeches in the mirror, but with understanding the mechanism, with noticing the small cues you give off that say, "I'm waiting for permission," or "I belong here." With realizing that power often arrives after the appearance of it, not before. This is where the experiment starts. Because once you stop leaking weakness, something strange happens. Resistance drops, interactions shorten, people move faster around you. You're no longer tested the same way. And that raises a dangerous question. If the world responds this differently to a change in signal, what else have you been misreading your entire life? There's a reason the brain takes shortcuts. It doesn't want to think, it wants to survive. So it scans, fast, cold, efficient. It looks at you and decides before you speak. If you look unkept, slouched, unsure, the decision is already made. You've done the judging for them. You've told them without words that effort isn't required. That's the part most people miss. It's not that others are cruel. It's that they're efficient. And efficiency has no patience for depth. Here's the uncomfortable part. When you present yourself as diminished, you aren't being humble. You're signaling surrender. You're saying, I've already lowered myself. You can too. People don't reject poverty because of money. They recoil from what it represents. Failure, fragility, bad luck that might spread. It sounds harsh, but watch what happens in real life. A man walks in with his shoulders folded, eyes low, clothes that apologize for existing. No one wonders what he's thinking. No one imagines hidden brilliance. They label him fast and move on, not because they're evil, because their brain is conserving energy. You've done this too. You've seen someone like that and felt a quiet urge to step away. Not out of hatred, out of instinct. That's the part people don't want to admit. We tell ourselves stories to stay comfortable. I'm authentic. I don't care how I look. I don't play status games. But comfort is not neutrality. Comfort is a position, and usually it's a losing one. Because while you're protecting your comfort, someone else is shaping perception. Here's the shift most never make. The world doesn't respond to who you are. It responds to what you signal. And signals don't care about your intentions. When you look diminished, the world assumes you are. When you look uncertain, it leans in to test you. When you look unguarded, it takes. Not out of cruelty, out of pattern. There's a name for this, the horn effect. One flaw becomes the lens for everything else. Crooked posture becomes weak character. Worn clothes become a small mind. A quiet voice becomes a lack of worth. Unfair. Yes. Predictable. Completely. And here's where it turns. Most people try to fix this by chasing confidence, affirmations, mindsets, motivation. That's noise. The real lever is simpler and more uncomfortable. It's the decision to stop broadcasting vulnerability by default, to stop leaking signals you never chose to send, because once you change the signal, the environment changes with you. Not instantly, not magically, but noticeably. People pause, they listen longer, they test you less. And that should make you uneasy, because if something this small shifts the way the world treats you, what else have you been unconsciously giving away? And what would happen if you stopped? They assume you're dishonest before you speak. Not because you lied, because your appearance already did. This happens fast, almost silently, a glance, a scan, a conclusion. If you can't control how you present yourself, the mind jumps to a simple thought. What else can't you control? That's the uncomfortable entry point. If you can't manage your posture, your clothes, your tempo, your presence, why should anyone believe you can manage a deal, a team, a responsibility? This isn't morality, it's pattern recognition. The world reads the outside as evidence of the inside. Fair or not, that's the rule being played. And most people lose without realizing the game even started. Here's the part no one likes to hear. Neglecting your appearance isn't humility, it's a signal. And the signal says, I've given up control. You may not mean it that way, but intention doesn't transmit. Signals do. When you walk in looking scattered, tired, poorly held together, you aren't seen as authentic. You're read as unstable, as risky, as someone who might collapse under pressure, and the world avoids collapse. This is where the discomfort deepens. People don't reject poverty because they hate the poor. They recoil because poverty looks like danger, like contagion, like gravity that might pull them down with you. Watch how people react when someone looks desperate. They step back. Their voice tightens. Their generosity suddenly develops conditions. Not because they're evil, because they're afraid. Now consider this scene. A man walks into a bank needing money. His clothes are worn. His shoulders bend forward. His voice explains instead of states. The room decides before he finishes his sentence. Another man walks in with the same need, same debt, same urgency. But his suit fits, his shoes are clean, his posture is calm. He speaks slowly, like time is on his side. One is questioned, the other is offered options. Nothing about the numbers changed, only the signal. That should bother you, because it means the system doesn't reward truth, it rewards appearance of control. This is where most people get trapped. They say, that's fake, I won't play that game. But the game plays you, whether you consent or not. Refusing to signal strength doesn't make you virtuous, it makes you invisible. And invisibility is expensive. Here's the pivot most never make. Looking capable isn't lying. It's protecting your leverage. There's a difference between deception and presentation. One hides truth, the other buys time for truth to be seen. When you show up looking diminished, you force others to imagine your limits. When you show up composed, you let them imagine your potential. And imagination is where power begins. This is why fake it till you make it survives ridicule. Not because it's noble, because it works. It's not about pretending to be rich, it's about not advertising need. Because the moment you look like you need something, the terms change. You stop negotiating. You start begging. And begging is expensive. People say they value honesty. What they mean is they value confidence wrapped in clarity. They don't want to rescue you. They want to align with you. And alignment only happens when you look like you belong where you stand. Here's the uncomfortable question that lingers after all this. What are you signaling right now without meaning to? Not with words, with posture, with pace, with how you occupy space. And if you changed only that, nothing else, what doors would open before you even knocked? Because the truth is, the world doesn't test your depth first. It tests your surface. And once the surface passes, then, and only then, you get a chance to show what's underneath. They will say it afterward. I should have known, just look at him. That's how it always sounds in hindsight. If a well-dressed man fails, people soften the story. He looked solid. He fooled us. They forgive the mistake because the image made sense. But if a man who looks broken fails, there is no forgiveness, only confirmation. Your appearance becomes insurance for the people who choose you. It lowers their risk. It gives them cover. And when you refuse to play that game, you don't look principled. You look arrogant, as if the world owes you the patience to discover your hidden worth. It doesn't. No one is obligated to dig for your value. You have to surface it yourself. Polish it. Make it visible. From across the room. That's the uncomfortable truth. If your value is real but invisible, it might as well not exist. This is where people misunderstand strategy. They think presentation is lying. They think it's pretending. It isn't. It's translation. You're translating who you are into a language the world understands. Machiavelli understood this without romance. He warned that a ruler must sometimes conceal what he is and display what the moment requires. Not because he's fake, because exposure without power is suicide. If you're hungry, you cannot look hungry. If you're anxious, you cannot look needy. If you're poor, you cannot look desperate. The moment need becomes visible, the room changes. People don't lean in, they step back. And this is where it gets darker. Look at animals, not metaphors, real behavior. When a wolf limps, it doesn't receive help. It becomes a target. No compassion, no patience, just instinct. Humans pretend to be above this, but we're not. We've just replaced teeth with contracts, claws with lawsuits, bites with exclusion. When someone looks weak, The system feels safe extracting from them cheap labor, bad deals, silence. Because who will defend them? If a powerful man is wronged, there are consequences. He has reach, he has allies, he has noise. If a powerless man is wronged, there is paperwork. That's the difference, and that's why appearance matters more than people admit. Not because it's fair, because it signals danger. Looking capable tells the world, this person can strike back. Looking diminished says this one can be touched. This is the part that stings. When you look poor, you're not just signaling lack of money. You're signaling lack of protection. And the world responds accordingly. That's why pretending this doesn't exist is expensive. That's why moral purity doesn't protect you. That's why intention doesn't shield you. The real question isn't whether this is right. It's whether you're willing to keep paying for ignoring it. Because once you understand this dynamic, something shifts. You stop asking to be understood. You start managing perception. You stop broadcasting weakness. You start controlling the frame. And then something strange happens. People treat you differently before you've changed anything else. Which raises a dangerous question. If so much changes before you even speak, what else have you been leaking without noticing? And what happens when you finally stop? You make yourself easy to use. Not because you're weak, because you look unprotected. I've seen sharp men disappear this way. Men with insight, with skill, with value. They thought their work would speak. They thought loyalty would shield them. It didn't. They dressed like background noise. So they were treated like background noise. When the cuts came, when someone had to be blamed, the choice was obvious. Not the loud one, not the polished one, the one who looked like he wouldn't resist. That's the part no one warns you about. Appearance is not decoration. It's armor. It creates a pause in the mind of the person across from you. A half second of doubt. A question instead of a decision. Who is this person? Should I be careful? That pause is power. Without it, the outcome is decided instantly. If they look at you and see certainty, they slow down. If they look at you and see softness, they move in. This isn't cruelty, it's pattern. You can argue with it if you want. You can say the world should be fair. You can say character should matter more than presentation. Gravity doesn't care what you think either. Machiavelli didn't describe ideals. He described mechanics. And the mechanic here is simple. The unarmored get crushed. Somewhere along the way, you were told that caring about appearance was shallow, that humility looks like neglect, that power is something you earn later. Those ideas didn't come from strong people. They came from people who learned to survive without power by redefining virtue. It's what's inside that counts. That sentence comforts the unseen. It doesn't open doors. Character keeps you inside once you're allowed in, but appearance decides whether the door opens at all. That's the distinction most people never make. Your inner value is the product. Your outer presence is the packaging. You can build the most brilliant thing in the world, but if you wrap it in neglect and hide it under shame, no one will touch it. Marketing isn't deception. It's protection. It tells the world this is worth attention. If you truly respected what's inside you, you would guard it better. You would present it like it matters. Because the world reflects back exactly what you signal. Show neglect, and you get neglect. Show order, and people hesitate before crossing you. That hesitation is everything. It's the space where power enters. And the question isn't whether this is fair. The question is simple and uncomfortable. If the world is already reading you this way, what would change if you stopped making yourself easy to dismiss? If you treat yourself like a clearance item, the world will negotiate your value down. If you treat yourself like something rare, people hesitate before touching you. That pause matters. You can feel it when you walk into a room. Either eyes slide past you or they slow down. There's something almost physical about it. When you sharpen your appearance, something else sharpens with it. Your thoughts tighten, your movements simplify, your voice stops asking for permission. Put on a clean shirt, stand straight, fix your hair. Not for vanity, and for alignment. Watch what happens next. You don't feel confident at first. You feel alert, more present, less sloppy inside. That's the part no one tells you. The outside pulls the inside into order. People think confidence comes first and appearance follows. That's backwards. The body leads. The mind catches up. The man who waits to feel ready stays waiting. The man who acts first builds readiness through motion. This is where the shift begins. You're not dressing to impress. You're dressing to decide who you are today. Every morning you cast yourself into a role. Not symbolically, literally, extra, comic relief, background noise, or something else. The wardrobe isn't fabric, it's a signal system. And most people unknowingly choose the costume of the overlooked, then wonder why the world treats them that way. But it goes deeper than clothes. Look at the eyes. There's a certain gaze that gives itself away. The quick glance down, the half smile that apologizes, the body that shrinks before it's challenged. That's not humility, that's conditioning. You can put that person in silk, and they'll still look poor. Not in money, in posture. And you can put a king in rags, and he'll still feel heavy in the room. Because he doesn't ask for permission to exist. This is what people miss. Power isn't loud, it doesn't rush, it doesn't explain. When someone is secure, they move slower. They speak less. They let silence do the work. Scarcity fidgets. Abundance waits. When you feel the need to over-explain, to over-smile, to over-give, that's not kindness. That's fear wearing manners. And people sense it instantly. This is why presence changes outcomes before words are spoken. This is why stillness unsettles others more than noise ever could. The moment you stop trying to be liked, something strange happens. You start being respected. Not because you demanded it, because you stopped leaking need. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most people aren't held back by lack of talent. They're held back by the signal they send before they open their mouth. So the question isn't what you're capable of. It's what you're broadcasting before anyone gets close enough to find out. And once you notice that signal, once you learn to adjust it, what else might shift without you forcing anything at all? When you're comfortable taking up space, the world reads it as wealth. Not money, presence. You can see it the moment someone enters a room. Either they arrive like they belong there, or they arrive apologizing with their body. The shoulders cave in, the steps are too fast, the eyes ask permission, and the room answers immediately. Yes, you're right. You shouldn't be here. That's the brutal part. Your body speaks before you do. And it speaks loudly. To change that, you don't start with confidence. You start with posture, with pace, with how much space you allow yourself to occupy without flinching. Move like your time is not cheap. Pause like you're not afraid of silence. Look at people until they feel seen, not until you feel exposed. This isn't arrogance, it's calibration. The mind follows the body, not the other way around. You can't think your way into presence. You have to act your way into it. That's why people who suddenly get money often lose it fast. They buy expensive things, but they wear them like thieves. They apologize for success with every movement. They still carry the old signal. And the world notices. You can drive a supercar and still look poor. Because poverty isn't in the wallet. It's in the behavior. Watch closely. The man who feels small is loud. He fills every silence. He explains too much. He jokes too early. He talks about his problems before anyone asks. Noise is his armor, but noise gives him away. Silence, on the other hand, unsettles people. Silence creates pressure. The predator doesn't announce itself. It moves slow. It waits. The most powerful person in the room usually speaks last, if at all. Not because they're shy, because they don't need to convince anyone. When you talk too much, you devalue your words, you flood the market, you make yourself cheap. When you hold silence, people lean in. They start filling the gaps with their own projections. They wonder what you know. They wonder if you're judging them. That's when the balance shifts. This is the quiet trick no one teaches you. Power isn't loud. Power creates gravity, and gravity pulls without effort. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people start explaining themselves to you. That's not manipulation. That's human nature. So the real question isn't how to look rich or confident or important. It's this. What are you leaking every time you open your mouth too fast? Or shrink your presence to make others comfortable? And what would happen if you let the silence do the work instead? You don't notice the moment it happens. One day, you're still distinct. The next, you blend in, you become ordinary, predictable, readable. And that's the danger. Because once you look like everyone else, the world treats you like everyone else. Replaceable, interruptible, easy to ignore. You don't want to be one of us. You want to be the exception people quietly measure themselves against. This doesn't start with talent. It starts with presence. Look at how people use the internet. They show everything, every meal, every thought, every emotion in real time. They empty themselves daily and call it authenticity. But what they're really doing is leaking value. The man who documents every moment looks available, hungry, in need of applause. The man who appears rarely with intention feels expensive, like his life exists somewhere off-screen. Scarcity creates gravity. When your presence is rare, your words carry weight. When your words are rare, people lean in. That's the first fracture most people miss. They think value comes from showing more. It comes from showing less, with precision. And then comes the excuse. I can't afford the look. I don't have the resources. That's a comforting lie. Looking poor has very little to do with money. It has everything to do with neglect. A clean shirt beats an expensive one that's wrinkled. Polished shoes beat designer shoes covered in dust. A calm posture beats any brand. Discipline costs time, not cash. And time is the one currency everyone claims they don't have. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't maintain your environment starts to shape you. Dust is not neutral. Disorder is not harmless. It tells your nervous system, this is chaos, accept it. And once you accept chaos around you, you tolerate it inside you. That's how standards collapse quietly. Look closer. The people who move through the world with ease are clean in small ways. Their clothes, their devices, their posture, their pace. It's not luxury, it's containment. The poor often look worn, not because they are weak, but because life keeps scraping against them and nothing pushes back. That's why details matter. A cracked phone screen says something, so does an unpolished shoe. So does a shirt that's been washed too many times. They say, I live with damage. And your mind listens. You start believing you deserve things to stay broken. This is where the trap locks in. You don't need to become rich to break it. You need to stop broadcasting decay. Fix what you can, clean what's in reach. Replace what's cracked. Not for status, for alignment. Because when your outer world stops leaking disorder, your inner world quiets down. and something shifts. People treat you differently, not because you asked, because you signal containment, control, readiness. That's what power looks like before it speaks. And once you notice this, you can't unsee it. The question isn't whether this is fair, it's whether you're willing to keep leaking value while pretending it doesn't matter. Because the world is always reading you. The only question is what story you're letting it tell. If your car rattles and coughs, don't park it in front of the door. Leave it around the corner. Walk the last stretch with your back straight. That's not deception, that's framing. A photographer doesn't lie when he cuts trash out of the frame. He just decides what matters. You should do the same with yourself. If you invite someone important to meet you, don't drag them into a place that makes you anxious about the bill. That anxiety leaks. It stains the air. Choose a small place you can own. Order something simple. Pay without hesitation. Sit back. It's not about money, it's about command. A man who controls a small space calmly looks richer than a man drowning in excess. This is where most people fail. They try to impress upward and end up exposing their fear. Comfort beats display. Now comes the part people hate to hear. Your image is not only shaped by you, it's shaped by who stands beside you. You might be sharp, focused, capable. But if you're surrounded by people who move like they've already lost, the world groups you with them. Fair or not, that's how the eye works. If you walk in with men who look tired, bitter, defeated, the room reads the pattern. If you walk in with men who carry themselves with calm control, the same room leans forward. This is not about betrayal. It's about context. You can love someone and still recognize they lower your perceived altitude. That's the quiet cruelty of optics. People don't evaluate you alone. They evaluate the picture you're part of. That's why influence spreads through proximity, why reputations leak, why certain rooms change your trajectory without a word spoken. You borrow gravity from the people you stand next to, and that cuts both ways. This is where most people hesitate. They confuse loyalty with stagnation. They confuse kindness with self-erasure. But the world doesn't read your intentions. It reads the composition. If you walk with chaos, you inherit chaos. If you walk with order, you borrow order. That's the rule. And it's brutal because it forces a choice. You can stay loyal to the version of yourself that feels familiar, or you can step into rooms that demand more of you. Not because you're better, because you're becoming. This isn't about abandoning people. It's about choosing which environments shape you. And here's the uncomfortable part. Every room you enter is silently voting on who you are. Every face beside you casts a vote. The question isn't whether that's fair. The question is whether you're ready to curate your life as carefully as you curate your image. Because once you do, something changes. Doors open before you touch them. Conversations shift tone. People start assuming strength where none was proven yet. And that's when you realize the real game was never about money or status. It was about who you let represent you when you weren't speaking. If the people around you look small, you shrink with them. That's the rule no one says out loud. It feels harsh. It feels unfair. But it's real. The world reads groups, not individuals. It scans the whole picture and decides what you are worth. This is where most people get uncomfortable because it means kindness alone won't save you. Loyalty alone won't elevate you. Effectiveness requires distance, not emotional cruelty, structural clarity. To stop looking poor, you don't just change your clothes. You redesign your environment, your posture, your speech, your tempo, your circle. It's not self-love, it's systems. And when you do it fully, something strange happens. The moment you remove the signals of scarcity, the world responds as if you already crossed a line. Doors loosen, Voices soften. Resistance fades. Not because people became kind, because they read you differently. This is the part most people miss. You don't become powerful and then look powerful. You look powerful, and the system reorganizes around you. That's not magic. That's mechanics. When you carry yourself with structure, people treat you with respect. When they treat you with respect, you gain access. When you gain access, resources follow. The mask builds the face. At first it feels like pretending, then it feels like practice. Then it becomes you. One day you notice something unsettling. You no longer ask for permission. You negotiate instead. You walk away instead of begging. You stop chasing approval, not because you're arrogant, because you've recalibrated your internal scale. This is where the real shift happens. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to survive. You start seeing yourself as someone selecting outcomes. That's when risk changes shape. You stop fearing rejection. You start fearing stagnation. The world senses that shift instantly. It leans toward people who look like they know where they're going, even if they don't fully know yet. That's the paradox. The appearance of direction creates direction. And here's the part most never reach. Once you understand this, you realize how much of life is theater, not lies. Positioning, everyone is acting. Some do it unconsciously, some do it deliberately. The difference is power. You don't need permission to step into a stronger frame. You don't need proof yet. You need alignment. And once you stop signaling scarcity, everything begins to move, not fast, but inevitably. Because the world always follows the shape of certainty. The only question left is this: will you wait to feel ready? Or will you move first and let reality catch up?